Hello and welcome to another episode of the Video Creator Show, where we talk how to grow YouTube channels the right way. And our philosophy is the best way to do that is to talk directly to people who are thriving on YouTube. Today, I'm speaking with Sean Rakidzich. He is an Airbnb host with a YouTube channel that shares his name. He knows the ins and outs of renting properties to strangers and, of course, making a good income stream off of it. He has over 230,000 subscribers, and he's an expert in a field that I think a lot of us are really curious about. You know, people think of Airbnbs as a way of it's semi-passive income, or at the very least, it's a really cool, interesting way to make some money. And I'm stoked to be talking to him today. I'm actually going to be staying at an Airbnb this weekend. So synchronicity, I don't know. And as you probably know, the Video Creator Show is brought to you by VidChops.com. So go ahead, check out VidChops.com to see how you can save yourself tons of time and energy while taking your YouTube channel to the next level. Sean, how you doing today?
Doing good, Grant. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So you obviously are deeply involved in Airbnb. Is this your full-time job? Like, do you do anything else income-wise?
So the Airbnb business is my fourth business. One died during COVID, so I'm down to three now. I was in the newspaper industry doing audience development. So that actually really helps for running a YouTube channel, understanding your audience.
I bet.
And then my Airbnb business is one. Then I have just this ragtag company that does like a lot of odds and ends that are servicing my own companies, I guess, long story short. So yeah, mostly I'm shooting YouTube videos. I've got a team that runs most of my Airbnb properties. I am involved in that business, but a lot of my time is spent actually on the creation of content side and the coaching side.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. So how many hours a week does it take to run? I want to say you said you had like 8 properties, or at least like 8 different cities. Is that correct?
8 cities, 150 properties.
Okay. Wow. Oh my God. So like how like that seems like it would take a ton of time to do, but you're still running these other businesses.
Yeah.
You have a YouTube channel. Obviously, I'm sure you hire out help to help you with such things. But I mean, how do you balance all of that? Because that's a huge amount of properties.
Well, it started with just a few properties. So I was doing it by myself back then, but I've got a team of a little over 30 people now. So definitely succeeding there. Learning what takes the most amount of time, creating like a training manual or a system for it, and then hiring somebody to do that one thing. It's probably the easiest way to make a hire. So housekeeping is one of those things. We have hundreds of hours a week in housekeeping, and then we have customer service staff. There's, probably 2 or 3 full-time customer service reps, and we got managers and stuff. So as our little company grew to a big company, things just started to take more and more time, and then you could hire one person to specialize on that one topic. So much like the YouTube side now, I spend most of my time just recording, and I've got 2 editing teams that do all my edits, where I used to do all my own editing, but now I just throw videos at editors and force them to keep up.
Mm-hmm.
Much the same.
So I that's something we talk a lot about on this podcast, because hiring editors, it seems like it's kind of the only way to scale up your YouTube channel without losing your mind. Because editing is really the main bottleneck of most channels, I think. It takes the most time. It's you have to be relatively precise with it, and it has to be good. Like you can't just have mediocre editing. It has to match the vibe that you built the channel on. So how long did it take you to kind of get up and running with your editors? And do you have advice to people of how to kind of vibe with an editor and make your vision clear to them so that there's not a lot of fuss?
I feel like there's answers for all sorts of stages though, right? Because there might be somebody listening to this going, man, I really want to start a YouTube channel, but I'm so intimidated. Where I started with a GoPro, right? My first viral video was shot on a GoPro camera with that little shorty Rode mic.
Sure.
And I shot it outside of a coffee shop. And the quality was not good, but the content was right. And I mean, it's niche content. And I will say that if you're in a niche, the production quality standard could be low in a niche, because you might be the only one really servicing a niche well with the right information. And then, yeah, your quality of content might be low, but no one else is talking about what you're talking about. Then eventually, I mean, we can't ignore quality, right? If we do want to grow and have a big audience, maybe expand out of our niche one day and bubble up and kind of go from, the whole Graham stuff and go from real estate to just all things current events. Yeah, you do have to keep your quality standard high. Um, I think that everybody should learn to edit on their own. I do this for the companies I run, the same thing. If you were trying to hire somebody to do something and you know nothing about what they do, anybody could fool you in an interview, right? Anybody could make it look like they know what they're doing as an editor or as an accountant or as a sales guy. So I think you need to know enough to be dangerous. So that way, when you interview somebody to take over the work, you know whether or not they're gassing you up. I
It
think
also makes you a better manager because I
Mhm.
have some clients I've worked for and they knew nothing about editing and they would ask me to do things that were just absurd. They didn't realize how long it took
Yeah.
or how difficult it was or whatever. And it just made it that much harder to communicate, I think. So
Yeah.
I completely agree. The more you know about editing, the better you're going to be at managing editors. So, and I don't know. To me, it's like a rite of passage with starting a YouTube channel. If I guess you have enough spare income or savings, then maybe you could get away with hiring a really good editor and just kind of having them take care of it. But you have to be willing to kind of throw money at the problem and deal with whatever inefficiencies come along with you not really knowing the editing skill set.
Yeah. And there's a lot of growth that comes from that, I've noticed. First, more to your point, my best friend doesn't know how to edit. So when we hired a editing team for some adventure content we shot, he was extremely offensive by accident to the editing team because
Oh
he
no.
kind of insulted their work and he had no clue like really what quality standard to hold their work against. All he knew is it didn't look like Sam Colder's videos. That's all he really knew. He wanted Sam Colder style content, and they weren't giving him what he wanted. And so he said some really like upsetting stuff, and we actually lost an editing team due to his like inability to like have tact. But I hired a team out of Croatia. I get emails all the time, right? Hey, we'd love to edit your videos. And since I'm Serbian, I ignored almost all other edit like requests except for this one that said they were from Croatia. That's a neighboring country. I'm like, oh, these are like my brothers. I'm gonna take them.
Sure.
And they happen to be good. There's still a big learning curve because English is not their primary language. So there's a lot of spell checking. That they'll make YouTube thumbnail titles that look like a Russian actually made up the title. Like it just the words don't necessarily make sense. So sometimes it's fun. But when you're no longer focused on the first round of edits and you send a raw product and they give you a first round edit back where you put no mental labor into the edit, you can get more creative. Be like, hey, I think we should do this, right? It's like something I'm doing now too. Is I'm trying where like I'm just talking head, like just like we're talking right now. I'll shoot a video and just I'm done. But now I'm shooting videos that I think are really important. I'm sitting on that raw run through and I go back through and I take some notes and go, okay, we're going to reshoot this. But instead of now me focusing on the content, like what words I'm going to say, what points, instead now I'm like, okay, so how can I deliver this better? Maybe how can we frame a scene? How can we do the lighting or the camera angle? I'm trying to think about all the other stuff now where I do one just raw shot for the script and then actually reshoot the same thing, but intentionally. It's kind of like a goal.
Sure,
But
yeah. I feel like there's always a better way to make a video, and the more you make, the easier it is to make them better. And that's kind of
Mhm.
the only way to learn, right? It's you keep making them, and eventually you learn. So I'm curious about the early days of your Airbnb business. So you said you started with a small amount of properties, which obviously makes sense, but what was it like jumping into that? Like, was it scary? I'm sure you made a lot of mistakes. I think the initial stages, in some ways, are the most tumultuous part for most people because one, you don't know what you're doing, and two, you don't really know what success feels like. I mean, sure, you're making money, but it's all unclear until you have succeeded with at least one property. So let's hear about the early days.
What's really funny is I got started in Airbnb by accident, so I didn't get that opportunity to go through like the scared phase. But when I started my first business, yeah, I was all nerves. And anytime I start something new, there's still an opportunity for those nerves. Sometimes you feel more or less. But when I got into short-term rental business, I was picking up apartments to put sales employees there because I was hiring sales guys. And one of the truths about salespeople is if you can just get them to focus on the sale and nothing else, they'll really perform. They're like racehorses. So I'm like, all right, let me just give them a place to stay. I'll just take the rent out of their check. They can just focus on their job and make their commissions. That was a really cool idea. But then people moved out and I had like three empty apartments that were furnished, but I didn't have anybody living in there because I didn't need these sales guys in Houston anymore. So I put them on Airbnb as just a way to pay the rent. Because like otherwise I was paying these leases with no income. So getting into Airbnb was really just like this, oops, I fell into it. Um, I don't think I really ever had one of those like crazy moments until maybe it came time to like hire a manager to oversee running the business in my absence. And so leaving Houston behind to start Dallas, there was some nerves there. Like the whole like I'm leaving this portfolio of properties that I've been babysitting myself, and now somebody else is going to run them while I work on another batch. And I mean, anytime you don't know how something's going to go is when it's the most scary, right? And that's why I think starting a new business or new venture, that's what's scary, is because you don't know how it's going to go. And the moment you know how it's going to go, even if it's not the best, but you know how it's going to go, it's almost like you have closure, right? You're like, okay, the path is defined. I can go with it. Even if it's not the path you wanted, sometimes having that closure is better than not knowing at all.
Oh, totally. And I feel like a lot of growth ends up happening when you get out of your comfort zone and you're nervous about something, but you've had this feeling maybe for a while that it's something you want to do. And it really could be
Mhm.
anything. And obviously in this case it was kind of going to a new city and leaving your existing properties to someone else so that you could have more time to do something else. And that's I like the idea of new life chapters. I feel like that's where the most growth happens. Kind of at least the way my mind works, and I think a lot of people I talk to on this podcast as well. I always like to be doing something new, which can be annoying because like it would be easier if I could just have one thing and kind of stick to it. Um, but there is something about venturing out into the unknown that is really exciting. But in this case, you were kind of building off of something that was existing, so I think that's a smart way to kind of start a new chapter.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, and in my space specifically, to kind of riff on the content itself, to since I'm this subject matter expert educator content guy, right? And very obviously niche heavy. In order for me to properly serve my audience, I have to keep testing new things within the business. So I have to keep pushing these envelopes of discomfort, trying new stuff within the company just to see what would happen. So I can make a YouTube video, which is like, oh, I tried hiring like a different type of housekeeper, or I tried using a different pricing strategy on my property, or I tried a new interior design style. And it's good for the content, right? It may not even be good for the business, but that research is never net negative for the company. You have that research. And then it's like, but the audience would want to know how this would go, even though it's not something we ever wanted to do. Let's try something for the audience. So being a YouTuber has changed the way that we run the company because there's things at play. But yeah, the I guess like the most core thing is if I wasn't running this company, if I wasn't in it, I'd be a much worse YouTuber in my niche because I'm value, that I'm education. I don't really make anything that's entertaining. So I've got to keep digging for new facts in order to be a YouTuber.
Right, you're sharing your experience and knowledge that you're getting through actually doing the thing that you're talking about, which makes sense, and it seems like a pretty smooth, integrated way to run a channel as well. So one thing I'm very curious about. So a topic that you've talked about quite a lot on your channel is kind of the Airbnb bubble bursting and sort of the decline of the hosting economy, so to speak.
Mhm.
What is it like running a business in a time like that? Because obviously Airbnb, you know, 5 years ago was kind of a big hot thing. Everybody wanted to do it, and then you have all these properties. The business, at least like the economy of the business, kind of starts declining. Did you change your practice? Like, what did you do to pivot,
Mm.
if anything?
So, so there's some good questions in there. I would say that there's a lot of strategic value in being a content creator in an industry like this when it all goes upside down. There's some really cool strategic value there. Um, we as a company always have to pivot and to find new spaces, new ways to innovate, make money. Like when COVID hit, we did like some more like month to month rentals and stuff like that in order to like handle the fact that Airbnb got banned in cities like Philadelphia during COVID. You just couldn't do short term rentals. So we do pivots as needed. And what we have to be careful for is like when I make YouTube content, I can't just go, oh, the sky is falling and not really give a solution because that's just too sensationalized. And it's really for what I believe to be my brand as a leader to help people in the industry, just say the sky is falling, everybody be scared is not really a serviceable video for me. But if I can go through a problem, go, hey, this is how much it sucks, and this is what we did to fix it. Here's what you guys can do. That's really good content for my brand as a coach. and as you know, as an Airbnb host. Like I did a video that I published today, which the title is "I'm losing so much money," and it's talking about the last couple of months of how the Airbnb bust did come in and just flip everything upside down. And I outlined like the three sections of the company that have lost us a ton of money and what we've been doing to patch those up. And so yeah, we can be honest and say, hey, the economy flipped upside down. The company started taking losses. Here's where the losses generated from, and here's as a business what we did to fix it. And it can be like again strategic value where you can confess to be owning a company in a hard economy, and you can also then let that become a point which you can shine in your content and go, hey, we overcame. So here's how we did it. I think it's actually cool because you know, I guess I can soapbox on this even more. It's cool because a lot of people are going to quit and a lot of people are going to give up in the space. You know, a lot of people are like, I can't make any money anymore. And it starts to show the difference in expertise. So if your goal as a content creator is to show that you're the best at something, then you want hardship in your industry, right? And you want to be the one that solves the problem. You want to be the one that gets creative and finds a way to make it work. Because as 9 people on the internet are going, oh, this is not the time. Don't invest in Airbnb or whatever. If you're the one that's like, hey, we figured it out, you've all of a sudden placed yourself as the subject matter expert in your space. In times of peace, like everybody could act like they're cool, but when all hell breaks loose per se, that's when you really see who the true like OGs are in a space. So I love adversity like this within reason. Right? We don't want it to be too bad, but it does allow for us to do really cool stuff with our content and of course innovate with the company.
Totally. And I'm sure having a YouTube channel has fed into the business as well. Like, do you find that people watch your videos and they're like, oh my God, I want to stay at your properties?
A little bit, not nearly as much as you would think. The YouTube channel helped with the business because I don't think I would have grown my Airbnb portfolio nearly this size if I didn't have my YouTube channel. That's probably one of the cooler parts of this is YouTube became my like online accountability partner. Like said, I'm going to grow this business. I'm going to show you how it's done. So I started picking up properties just for the content. If I didn't have YouTube to kind of like be like, I'm going to do this, I would have not grown nearly as much. I did a webinar, like an in-person, like a hybrid webinar. I'm starting to do like more webinars now. And for the people who like attended in person that flew in from like other states, some of them stayed at my Airbnb properties as well. So it was like cool way to double dip. And every now and then somebody hits me up on Instagram, goes, hey, I'm going to be in Dallas. Can I stay in one of your spots? It slightly net positive, but it's almost insignificant.
That I guess so. YouTube is almost a self-contained business. Is kind of what I'm hearing. Can you talk about you talked about coaching? You just mentioned a webinar. Can you talk about how YouTube has become its own business and the sort of revenue streams associated with your channel?
Yeah. And I'm actually going to be talking about this kind of stuff a lot on a new YouTube channel. I haven't even told anybody about it yet. It's called the Gladiator Method. And I'm going to be doing like how to create content, like a little YouTube channel about my style of content, which is, you know, educational, no BS, high integrity, build an audience that won't ever leave you kind of stuff. In my world, like I've given away content for free on how to Airbnb for like years, right? Just give it away for free, like have fun with it. And now on the back end, so YouTube years later, I'm making $7,000 to $12,000 a month in ad revenue on my video views. But when you look at the total pie of what you can make, it's super small compared to what you can make as an educator. These webinars, I did 3 separate webinars in 2 weeks. 2 of the webinars, we pre-sold tickets that were like $80 a ticket or $160 a ticket. And both of those webinars like pre-sold like 50,000 each, which was killer, right? So yeah, we did $135,000 in webinar sales in 3 weeks between 3 webinars. And then our course product, we don't run any ads, just the YouTube content, all the free content that I post on how to Airbnb. People come around and go, you know what? I want to learn from this guy. I want his coaching. I want his mentorship. And people just buy into a course product. And we do about $150,000 a month in sales for that too. So giving away free content where you're good at something and you let other people in on your game actually pays off huge on the back end. Even just like doing free content. We don't do any of that sleazy, like, oh, I will show you how this works. Like, look at my Lamborghini. Like, but if you want to learn my secrets, buy this course. We don't do any of that both. Like, I think that's old news. Like the Ty Lopez stuff is so old news. I think the future really is high value because people want more mentorship anyway. So if you could teach in video and show that you might have the composure to mentor, a lot of the money in the expert content creator space is do free videos, but then charge for mentorship. And that's where I think where the money is. But YouTube as a contained business is the entrance to your awareness funnel. You get a little bit of money in ad revenue, but really what it is it's an awareness machine that can drive a lot of interest into your education products business or whatever you're pushing on the back
Hmm. Right. It's essentially organic marketing. You just
end.
kind of post videos about something that you are knowledgeable of, and you're able to kind of go deeper into that knowledge, maybe sell some courses, webinars, kind of like you're doing. Do you like, I've talked to a lot of people about kind of what you're doing. And sometimes people struggle to figure out, okay, what information do I put out for free? And what information do I put behind a paywall, or what do I put into a course? Like, how do I not give too much away, but I also don't want to leave people feeling like I'm trying to rip them off, but I also want to give them free information, but not so much that I don't have enough to kind of package it in a more uh, detailed way behind the scenes.
There's probably two different approaches to this, probably. One very simplified way you could look at it is you could tell people what to do, but not how to do it. You could always break the what and how up. Um, right now, though, I think you could give away 95% of your content and just like upload it in a haphazard manner. Like today, I'm doing interior design. Next day, I'm doing photography. Next day, I'm doing some pricing strategy stuff. Next time, I'm talking about a little bit of mindset, customer service. But all the videos are so like jumbled that it's not like in a course curriculum format. So somebody would still buy a course because they just want it in like X's and O's for dummies. They might just want it organized. So you could give away most of your content in chunks.
Mm,
But there's also another strategic play here that I've noticed in my space. There are a lot of influencers that are showing like Rolls Royces and Lambos or whatever. Just, hey, like I make all this money in Airbnb. I will teach you how. Join my mastermind, join my group or whatever. They teach nothing for free, but they're trying to appeal to people who are interested in making the money. This is like a level one, like for education products. You're trying to get somebody to like pay for exposure into your niche. And then level two would be like somebody who joins like an Airbnb, starts their first property, and they're like, oh my God, this is way harder than I thought it was going to be. Because influencer number one made me think it was easy, and I bought his course, and now I'm an Airbnb host and I'm not making any money. So that level two is like where if you're giving away free content, like you could give away the free content that the guru was trying to sell, and they're going to see you on YouTube eventually and go, wow, this guy's giving away the same stuff for free that I was paying for. If I paid him for coaching, he's probably going to teach me more. Right. So there's this
right.
perceived value ladder. And then third from there is like, oh, I'm proficient at Airbnb. I'm doing well. But now as a business owner, I'm growing to points that I'm getting challenged that are, I never thought I'd reach those layers. So you have to first, I guess, decide like where you sit on that educational ladder. And so for me, strategically, I'm trying to I'm trying to level up my ladder a little bit more, where I'm giving away all the level one stuff, maybe even a lot of level two stuff for free. So that way, anybody in the Airbnb space, if they research it at all, they should run into me because of the amount of free content I give. And a lot of that free content is meant to kill other people's courses, where they're like, I'm going to teach you this. And then I can just respond, well, we teach that for free right here on YouTube. Right. So we've got a lot of course killer software, or course killer content. And then the people who become successful enough to make any money on Airbnb will then eventually pay me for coaching to learn how to run a real business. So that's kind of where I set it up. And as somebody who's like teaches at a very low level, you can sell small products that deep dive on a topic, and you get a lot of people to pay you for a small product, and you don't necessarily have to be this business coach of the year like I'm trying to be. But if you're willing to give massive value at the ground floor and you're capable of coaching at a high level, I think that's a really good defensive strategy to really own a niche. Because if you give away all this stuff for free that somebody else would want to charge, you're really killing out your competitive coach competition. And then you're the only one left because you gave it all for free.
Sure. And I'm sure part of the success, obviously, is kind of delivering once people actually sign up for you to be their coach, or, for instance. So what are kind of the main problems that you find yourself coaching people through?
Um, a lot of people have problems with indecision or confirmation bias if we're
Mm,
not making it an Airbnb specific topic. Like, if we made an Airbnb example, like some guy wants his first property, right? He finds a property where the landlord is going to let him do Airbnb, but the landlord is trying to charge him an extra $500 a month in rent, like increase his rent. One of my students is like, hey, I found this great building. It's so nice. This is the deal the landlord wants. And one of my hard and fast rules is you never pay more in rent than anyone else. You're never going to up the rent. And he was so sad that I told him not to take the deal. As his coach, I'm like, don't take that deal. That's a bad deal. Wait for the next one. Get the deal on your terms. And he was really distraught because he wanted that first deal. He wanted it fast. But eventually, of course, he held his ground, found another landlord that gave him a good deal, and he's profitable on that one. Where that extra $300 or $500 per door would just immediately burn your profit. So, like those types of things where somebody's confirmation bias leads them to try to make a decision that's actually bad for the business. A lot of the coaching I've realized is like a lot of people have a hard time taking action at all because they've overeducated themselves, or a lot of people are trying to take the first deal they can get their hands on because they're just so desperate. Those are common threads. And then in a space like short-term rentals where anybody can get involved, when the lower the barrier to entry on something like this, the less complete someone's education is. So somebody might be good at customer service or sales or interior design, but then there's all these other topics that they don't know. So they start running a business out of like one area of aptitude where they've got all these shortcomings, and those are going to come back and bite them later. So a lot of my coaching is like preventing them from making a mistake because they're just not educated, like in a space that they could, like go and take an accounting class, go learn a little bit of accounting, and it'll save you way down the road, for example. Like,
Yeah, that makes sense. I have a few coaching clients or whatever you want to call them as well. And indecision does seem to be a huge issue. It's kind of like, okay, I want to start a YouTube channel on this. Actually, no, I think this would be better. Actually, and it's like this kind of gentle balance of like wanting somebody to make a decision that's true to themselves, but then there also is a certain level of you kind of just have to decide something and do it. Whatever it is. And obviously you want to make the right decision, but I maybe in your case with kind of buying rental properties, there's maybe more objective data, like that's too much, that's too high. Whereas kind of where I'm coaching, it tends to be with starting and growing YouTube channels. So like somebody who is trying to start a channel, they'll usually go through like 5 different ideas with me. They'll try all these different scripts. Sometimes they'll get like a lot of the way through actually making videos only to decide they're not interested and switch to something else. And then eventually they'll kind of find what works for them. But indecision can really eat a lot of time. And what do you think causes indecision? Is it just as simple as a lack of confidence, or is it something kind of more specific?
So if you've ever gone to do something and then didn't do it, and you got bugged out because you didn't do it, and then you stare at it again and think about doing it, but then don't do it, not only are you adding to that initial apprehension, but all the time that you spent stressed on a topic is added weight that almost makes the monster bigger, right? Mm-hmm. So the monster was already scary, but now you're giving it all this extra energy and stress. Like, I can't overcome this. I've been trying for a year and I still haven't been able to do it. So now not only are you assigning your initial apprehension, but you're giving it the power of a year that you took as an inaction. And so now it's got that year of power. Like, I couldn't do this for a year. I'm never going to be able to do this, right? So it starts to pile up like the sands of time on your shoulder. I think that's one of the biggest things about indecision and hesitation is the longer you hesitate, the bigger that monster gets. And that's where people kind of get stuck. And if I was going to start a new YouTube channel, I would just throw some videos out there and hope that I would catch some insights from engagement and data, right? Right. If you're gonna sail a ship across the ocean, you need some stars in the sky to guide you. You know what I mean? Just throw them out there, and maybe some of that content will catch, and you'll catch some cool data. And that's one thing I like about my industry too, is we get data. I don't buy properties. So all my 150 properties are apartments. I rent them from landlords. I usually get them to give me 2 or 3 months of free rent on the front end. It's a really fun little flip. And of course it makes for compelling content, but the data that I can get from having 150 properties where I paint some of them pink and some of them green, and I do some weird things with plants in this one, I can find out which properties people like the most. And I can start to use that data to do more of what works, right? So even with short-term rentals, anything, you need to do something so you can find out what works. In the tech space, they call this like a rapid iteration phase. They probably have named this rapid iteration phase something fancy, but do something, get data fast, do something again, get data, do something again. And the longer you delay between those iterations, the longer your ramp up cycle goes. Because if you can respond to data in a heartbeat and then put out another iteration, you can get next round of data in another heartbeat. But it's that delay. And it's being a creator is the same thing. And I think Mr. Beast talks about this, right? He's like, get a group of friends who are creators, right? So that way, every video that all of you post, if 10 of you post a video a week, you get 10 videos worth of data every week. But if you're this lone wolf that posts on your own, and you're too afraid to talk to anybody about it and have a community, you're only getting one video data a week, where you can learn from other people's mistakes if you just had some fellowship, like a creator community to like lean on, which I don't have actually. It's probably one of my biggest regrets is I don't have a group of creator friends. So I've been doing this all kind of blind for 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can really speak to the importance of working with other people, creator friends, a team, whatever you want to call it. My YouTube channel, Treesicle, I started it with 3 friends, and, for years we worked full time on it together. And it was always really helpful having other people. They keep you accountable, obviously, but you also riff off of each other. There's chemistry. I think it can make the production process more effortless. Whereas, kind of now I've taken a step back and I'm doing a lot of independent consulting and just sort of working for clients. And I feel like it can be a bit harder to be motivated and to know what you actually want when it's just you. There's some nice things about that too, though, right? Because if you have a disagreement with somebody and you think they're wrong and they think you're wrong, that can be annoying. It can cause strife, perhaps. Whereas if you're by yourself, you can just say, well, I think this is right, I'm going to do that. But ultimately, making videos in a dark room, it takes a lot of self motivation, and it's maybe harder to sustain if versus working with other people, for sure.
Yeah, like especially if you rely on like some form of validation from your video production and you're not getting the views that you want, then and you don't have any other external form of validation, you might just give up on your video project, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're making videos by yourself and you made a few videos and they're not performing well and you get all sad panda and you stop, right? If you had a community, like a couple friends, like, hey, dude, like we've all been there. It's okay. Just keep making the videos. You have somebody, you could have this external voice that says, hey, this is normal to not get views sometimes. Just keep going. Getting through that might be tough unless you're a really stubborn person like me. I'm just hella stubborn. And that's why I think I just kind of went with it.
Mm-hmm.
And the Nikola Teslas of the world, right? You've got these mad scientist types that are lone wolves, and that's where they excel the most, is not listening to the masses. And so, I mean, I swear to God, CoffeeZilla must be one of those guys. CoffeeZilla just strikes me as this lone wolf. I don't care what anybody says. I'm making the content I want to make, and it can work. It can work. But a lot of we're pack animals. So by default, I think most people should have a community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. And at the very least, if you can make videos at a short pace to start, and then once people can kind of see what you can do, even if it's not getting views, that might make it easier to kind of find your community as well. Because I at least, especially if you're kind of a shy person, like YouTube helped me be less introverted, more comfortable with conversation, which has been great. But I did find that, when I was less comfortable expressing myself, if I could make videos I wanted to make, then it was almost like people could see the videos and get a better idea of who I am and what I had to offer, not just as like a resume booster, but almost as like oh, this is how this guy's mind works. This is his vibe. Even if he maybe in conversation isn't as good at expressing himself, I see this video he made, and now I understand him that much better. So even if he can just barely get out the door, that might be enough to start kind of reaching out, and you can maybe send some messages to people. Hey, I make videos too. Let's maybe work together. And that can be a really powerful thing, is like actually making something, a few things. Yeah, even if you're not quite sure what the next step is going to be.
And to one of your points about how, like, it helped people understand who you are in a way, I think it's cool to be an enigma. It's cool to be a little bit weird, like hard to pin down on camera. There's a guy named Dominic. He did Instagram education stuff online for a while. I haven't seen him in a bit. I saw some of his videos. And the way he talked reminded me of like, he was an actor that like there's 2 mice filling a bucket of cream. Like he's got this really weird vocal. And so he had this really weird vocal, but really weird pacing of his sentences too, like the way he spaced his words and stuff. And he always carried his head to the side a little bit too. He was so weird. And so I watched a little bit more of his videos that I probably would have normally, just because he was a bit of an enigma. And then it was long enough for me to value his Instagram insights that I kept watching him for his actual value, right? And so a less self-loving person probably would have been like, oh, I look like an idiot on camera. I'm weird. No one's going to like me. But in the modeling world, they call it a look, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes your look is what the world wants, even though you don't like your own look. The world likes your look. So I think being a little bit of a weirdo on camera, being a little bit like even slightly off-putting, you can even say, could actually be good for your performance initially
Mhm.
because it makes you unique. It makes you you.
Yeah, there's a guy named Dax Flame. He's been on YouTube for probably like 15 years, and he's like so awkward, but like in a weird, charming way. And he's kind of in a category of his own. I watched an interview with him, and it was so like awkward. He ended up like interviewing the interviewer, but I don't think he was doing a shtick. I think he was just uncomfortable answering questions, so he asked them instead. And that for him just kind of it works, and he's been on YouTube forever. He's actually using like an AI to control his YouTube channel. And just I think what I agree with that. Whatever your kind of vibe is, then that's what you should go for. Just kind of own it the best you can.
Yeah,
And
agreed.
yeah, so the next thing I wanted to ask you about, so you've made some YouTube shorts, quite a few of them. Um, I'm curious, have you found that they've affected the views on your long form content at all? Because some people seem to say like they work a lot. Other people say they're kind of self-contained. Obviously, YouTube is rolling out new kind of short monetization in February, so maybe shorts will make more money in and of themselves. But for now, it's kind of like you hope that they'll feed into your long form. Have you found that that's been the case at all?
Yeah, actually, so like I'm trying to pull up some engagement metrics to kind of give you some one. There's one that I have that's got like 90,000 views on it, old school video, and it's been like steady trickling up. I don't know if you could see of course, the moment I try to move my analytics thing, I don't know if you can see that steady
A
like
little
kind
bit,
of
yeah.
like
Hmm.
swing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just like a drum beat over time. It's like 300, 400 views a day now. It's like popping. And I see comments on this video, and then I see the same person comment on long form later. So yeah,
Hmm.
shorts. People who catch a short might catch a long form after it. So that's why we're super heavy on shorts right now. So that way, people can catch like little bits and pieces of me, and then hopefully that captures them into the long form content. And some of the metrics that we're tracking, it's implying that people from shorts are ending up in our long form.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really good to hear, because I think ultimately shorts are really good at getting attention, and then long form is better for retention. Kind of building long form is more for building a dedicated audience. In shorts, are they just kind of like infiltrate the system? They get a lot of attention, and a lot of views from them. Maybe make a little bit of money, but you're ultimately trying to funnel people into your long form stuff.
Yeah. We're
At
using
least
cards and end screens in our shorts, like very like intentionally. We're loading shorts with cards and an end screen to try to get them to long form. So we're just
mm,
like every suggested video on a short is a long form video to
mhm,
try to pull them right out.
mhm. Yeah, that's so when you have an end screen at the end of a short, like do you actually find people are clicking them? Because I've kind of experimented with it, and I guess I'm just not used to it yet. I guess, do you have any advice for like making that work for a short?
Yeah. So what we try to do first is we will have the subscribe button like hang for the longest period of time. And then at the very end, we'll like let the long screen, like the video pop up at the end with the video version of it. And when we look at when we look at engagements on these bad boys, um, we do get a good amount of subscribes off of these shorts videos. Um, and I think that's kind of what's important is you get to subscribe because we hold it right at the end for a long, long time. And then I need to look at our cards. So, the card annotation metrics,
Hmm.
but we still get like, yeah, the similar, we get a similar amount of engagement on shorts on our card conversion that we do on our regular long form videos. So,
Hmm. Wow.
but that subscribe button definitely works when you hover like on the end screen thing, you hover the subscribe circle as long as possible, and then put the end screen video. That's what we've been doing, and we've been converting. So
That's smart. I don't think I've heard of people using like the subscribe button overtly on shorts. I've heard people say like and subscribe, but just having it there, having it wait.
Mhm.
Seems like a good strategy. Definitely gonna gonna try that out with my own channels for sure. Um, so I'm glad it's been feeding into long form. Shorts have kind of like they've been a big upset to YouTube. I think overall they're exciting. I've been embracing them. Um, like, do you find that like have you seen the landscape of YouTube change because of shorts? Obviously, they exist, and that is very different. But have you found that it's changed long form content at all, or have you felt a pressure to kind of cater to a shortening attention span, perhaps?
So I don't think it's YouTube Shorts that did it, but TikTok definitely did it, right?
Sure.
The presence of short content has created much more 3-second intro, 4-second intro adjustments, right? Or lack of intro adjustments or whatever. The more beginnings of a video somebody watches, the more somebody is discerning with their pattern recognition, whether or not they want to watch a video. There's a book called Insta Brain that talks about how Generation Z interacts with content. It's a really cool book called Insta Brain. And the quickness at which somebody from Generation Z will choose whether or not they're going to engage with a piece of content is so much faster than a millennial. It's crazy. So
Wow.
if anything, TikTok and the hyper short video phase has created a much more important intro kind of engagement technique for long form. What we've been doing is we've been putting big text in our beginning of our videos. Because when you're scrolling on YouTube and then the thumbnail goes away and it starts to like teaser play the video, you want a lot of activity in that teaser play if you can. So the little cuts aren't good enough. Like what you want is like, it's because there's no audio, right? If somebody's scrolling, your thumbnail just goes away and it starts to play the video. If for the first 15 seconds, there's graphics that help inform the video. It's like a moving thumbnail. The first 15 seconds of your video are like a moving thumbnail. So you have sentences that flash so people can read, and you have reaction stuff and graphics that can kind of like quicksand the viewer into going from just pausing to actually clicking on what is now your moving thumbnail. I think it's probably the biggest thing. So if you take what works on TikTok and you put it into the first 15 seconds of your video to suck more click through, I think that's probably super important. And captions, big fat captions is probably one of the biggest things we've noticed for that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. Captions are one thing that's really changed. I feel like there's people who English isn't their first language. But then there's also something kind of retentive about captions. I find like if a video has captions, I almost like get sucked into reading them. It makes me more likely to stay on. It's like a weird phenomenon. I don't quite understand why. I guess there's just always something on the screen that's changing. But yeah, captions are pretty huge, and kind of using those automated caption tools.
And that's why when I watch anime, I use dubs, right? Because when I have subtitles on my anime, I just like read the text and I miss all the art. So I try to dub all my anime. So that's
yeah, I totally get it. What are well, now I'm curious. I actually used to run an anime channel called Bonsai Pop. Are you what is your favorite anime? I gotta know.
I'll just say that Meruem and Kumogi are the greatest love story of all time.
I mean, that's I haven't seen that, unfortunately. So now
that's the Chimera Ant arc for Hunter x Hunter. So
oh, right on. Yeah, we made a video. I did not host it. I may have done some like editing on that video, but yeah, I now I'm looking like a pleb, but thanks for answering the question. My last question for you, and this is a question I like to ask a lot of people. What is your golden rule for succeeding on YouTube? Your biggest piece of advice that you think can really make or break success more than any other piece of advice?
Mine will have a bias because of the educator content part of it. I've got this philosophy that's why I call it the gladiator method, which is you need to build an arena at which you are the star. People come to this arena to watch you fight within your space. And so you need to kind of go to market with your content with that, build it over time, build this gladiatorial arena over time through a bedrock of solid content. And people will over time come and fill that Coliseum. And that's when your views go up. And if you treat your content with this long form building an empire approach and maintain a solid sense of integrity to your approach of content, and don't try to fish that water too soon, don't try to ask your community for monies or to buy stuff too soon. If you can maintain that high integrity relationship Once the Coliseum is built, then you can charge to fill those seats. But don't be trying to monetize your audience while you're trying to build your audience, right? So that's kind of like my general thought to
I think in general that's great advice, because I mean, at first I think you want people to trust you, and if they feel like, you know, you're just getting started and you're already asking for money, it doesn't tend to work well. Or even if you have a sponsor on a video and you're, I don't know, let's say you have a channel that's like 10,000 subscribers, you get your first sponsor, probably wouldn't pay you a ton at that level, but let's say you put it on, you'll make a little bit of money, but there's a good chance you'll have kind of a dip in audience retention, and that's actually going to keep your channel from growing. So sure, in the short run, maybe you made a few $100s, but in the long run, you have kind of kicked yourself in the knee, or kicked yourself in somewhere, in order to make a little bit of money up front. And yeah, I think generally when you hit a certain level, they're like, okay, this guy's big enough now. He can have a sponsor. But yeah, you don't want to do it too soon. You'll hurt your watch time. You'll hurt your ability to grow. And then in the long run, you know, you'll end up losing on money anyway. So ironically, by chasing it too soon, you kind of ended up making less.
That is actually super insightful, because you are trying to feed the algorithm the right people, because then YouTube will suggest your content if it performs well with certain people. So to turn someone off because of a sponsorship, you now are not getting the referrals from that like kind audience, like suggesting algorithm.
And if you're a smaller channel, I think I don't know for sure if the algorithm it discriminates against smaller channels, but at the very least, it's, you know, harder to get noticed. Obviously, you just don't have the momentum that a larger channel does, so you kind of want to do everything you can to keep that momentum up. And if you sell out too quickly, then you're not going to have as much momentum.
Yeah, and yeah, if you do like sell yourself for 5 cents, you're never going to make the dollar, right? And like in my world too, like the back end for me is if I teach people Airbnb for free, and then people start making 7 figures a year, which is obviously in this world that actually happens, which is cool. I can sell really big mentorship packages to people who have the cash on the back end. So 98% of my content can be free for the little guy, but when the little guy starts making money, he's loyal to me because I taught him. And so when there's a chance to join some $25,000 mastermind or something, he's looking for my mastermind if I ever make one. So yeah, I could take some stupid little ad and then not grow, or I could wait and cash in on the $25,000 check from a success story. Like you have to kind of decide you're not going to go for the little money if you want to go for the big money.
So true. So very true. Well, Sean, this has been great. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Why don't you tell people, where can they find your courses, your YouTube channel? I mean, it's your name, obviously, but.
Yeah. Yep. My name is Sean Rakidzich. That's my YouTube channel for how to do Airbnb. My website is just rakidzich.com. And then, yeah, I guess I peeped it. Pretty soon I'm going to be posting videos on one called the Gladiator Method. That's going to be a little like, hey, here's how I make content. So that's actually coming soon. For your community,
Indeed.
That actually seems a little bit more on the
Well, there you have it, everybody. That is a wrap, and I will see you in the next one, whoever you are listening. Until next time.